who's joining us. Thank you. It has been quite the weekend.
It has been quite the weekend. I don't know about everybody else watching, but Liam and I had a very busy weekend this weekend for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, there were events. I mean, Friday was a mad scramble driving around to different stores. Friday night was a release event. Saturday was a release event. Sunday, what did we do Sunday?
We did a box break that
we did a box break at one of our local game stores and edited videos, and it was just wild. So what a Lorcana weekend.
I know, it was fantastic.
We have a great show plan. We have a lot of guests coming in. We have some other content creators. We have some game store owners and managers and employees. For the first half of the show, we're going to talk about release weekend, what everybody's experience was like. If you have some experiences you want to share in the chat, or if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them and we'll get them in. And then for the second half of the show, we're going to break and we're going to talk about competitive play. There are some events coming up we found out about last week. There's a small PPG tour, and there's a store who's hosting a $1,000 plus Lorcana tournament right out the gate. And so we're going to ask them all about how that's going, what registration looks like, and why they were so eager to get competitive play off the ground. So it's going to be a great show.
Yeah, I know. Packed schedule, like the packed weekend. So I hope everybody had a great Lorcana launch weekend. And again, yeah, like Liam said, drop your experience in the chat. We'd love to hear from you about how your weekend went. I know allocation was a hot topic, and I have a feeling some of the store owners and managers that we're about to bring on have some thoughts on allocation. But yeah, drop your comments in the chat.
Yeah. So to start, I'd like to welcome back to the show one of our favorite content creators, great friend of the channel, Stephanie from Lorcana Illumineers. Stephanie,
hello.
Oh, there you are.
Hi.
Hey. Welcome back to the show. We're so excited you're here.
I'm so excited to be here again, and hope you all are getting rest from the ravenous weekend we all had.
I know. Happy Lorcana launch.
A little bit of rest.
Lorcana launch.
So how was your weekend? I know not only did you get cards, but you ran a sealed event, didn't you?
I didn't run one, but I did attend one. But I am helping to run the OP at a few LGSs here in the Pacific Northwest. So we are starting those up, I think in a couple weeks. I think release weekend, we just kind of wanted to do one-off events to get people in, get people familiar, and then have the rules a little bit, and then we'll kick off OP in a couple weeks. So those are coming, and actually some of the kits have not made it to the Pacific Northwest because of distribution. So the OP kits have been delayed, unfortunately. I am not an LGS owner, for those who are wondering, but we're helping to run OP. I've heard some unfortunate delays in some of the distributors that have been tied with the Pacific Northwest. So, but yes, did we want to talk about that sealed event? Is that kind of where we're going here?
I want to know.
Or wherever.
Yeah. How was the weekend? Did you meet some new players? What was it like?
Yeah, it was probably one of my favorite weekends ever. Like it was like your dream nostalgic kid weekend, opening cards and trading with people, and I felt like it was like Gen Con 2.0, but less people and a little more like deep with people, which felt really good. Yeah, so Friday I went to a sealed tournament with my husband Curtis, which was super fun. So this is my husband's first TCG. So we've been kind of practicing. He's been my like Gen Con practice partner. So I went to the event and I was like, just have fun, just chill, open up some packs. Everyone's learning the rules. And he was like, I'm probably going to lose. And he went 2-0. And I was like, see, it's fun. And he was like, he was just like very surprised with himself. I also went 2-0, and it was like super fun meeting a bunch of new people. A few friends and I and Lorcana Dad are running the Pacific Northwest Lorcana Discord. And so we have a bunch of fun new people, and we met a bunch of fun, amazing people at those events. So we got everyone kind of hooked up, and they're like, where do I get cards? Where do I go? And so we were able to help people do that. So it was amazing weekend meeting people, got to meet a few fun new content creators I haven't met with that we want to do some collabs with here in the Pacific Northwest. And I was just a super fun weekend. I just want to do it again. Yeah. So yeah, it was so great.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, those of us who've gone on this whole journey with Lorcana from, you know, the announcement to Gamma Expo, the news, and then Gen Con, and then this release weekend, you know, I think people have an appreciation of it, but it really hit me at one point that we are experiencing all of this launch weekend for the only time in our lives. I mean, we'll see other sets come out, but this is a once in a lifetime experience.
Launch. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. I can 100% agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm really excited to keep this discussion going. I do want to bring in 2 more guests
Do it.
to our conversation. So first, our local game store here in Austin. You may have seen them featured on our channel today. Marco from Game Castle, who runs organized play here in town for a variety of TCGs. Marco, welcome.
Hello, guys. I'm Marco. I run TCG and organized play at Game Castle of Austin, your local game castle here in Austin, Texas. And yeah, we had a pretty good launch event for all of the Lorcana fans. We were super excited to see all the fans that came out, new and old. You know, I play a lot of TCGs, and this was an exciting launch. I mean, it's the first time we see Disney as a TCG, and we were really excited. We tried to go above and beyond for our community because we're a community-run store. We know that if we take care of our players, they're going to take care of us.
I love that philosophy.
Yeah, and y'all did an amazing job speaking from firsthand experience as a new TCG player. It was
Marco, were you surprised at how many people came out? Or were you like, no, this is what we were expecting?
Honestly, we prepared for a big launch.
Okay.
We prepared for about 2 weeks for this launch on all of the logistics. We had 40 people sign up for our event. We had a sealed deck event, sealed starter deck event. We individually wrapped all of our sealed decks so that it was, kind of like a mystery.
In Mickey Mouse
nice
paper.
surprise. Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
we had Mickey wrap paper, and we had the ears too.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we gave every participating player a set of Mickey or Minnie ears, and we tried to make it as much fun as possible for everyone. We approached it as a non-competitive environment. It was mostly a party. It was fun. We did raffles. We gave out cupcakes to everyone. We wanted everyone to feel welcome, and I feel like that's what we did.
That's amazing.
We actually have another game store manager that's going to join us here in just a second.
Yeah,
Sarah.
We're going to bring in Sarah from Duke City Games.
Yeah. Hey.
Hi, so I'm Sarah. I manage one of our 2 locations for Duke City Games. We have one in Albuquerque, and then I run the one in Rancho. We also did a pretty big launch event this weekend. We were anticipating as much. So our player base was kind of split between 2 stores, thankfully, because it was like a madhouse this weekend. But it was fun. We just ran sealed deck all weekend. I figured it was probably the easiest just because I had a lot of newer players. I had a lot of like more casual players. A lot of my competitive scene kind of held back because they've been going through the ringer with like RCQs for different games, like Shadowverse qualifiers, all that kind of stuff. So they kind of hung back, and they're going to start doing all the like drafts, seals, starting this week on like Wednesdays and Fridays. So I'm excited. It was a fun weekend.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Sarah, actually, for those watching, Sarah runs a brilliant social media for her store. Probably one of the most polished that I've seen from a game store. So definitely check out her handle, see how it's done. But as I will call it community manager, social media manager, you're like kind of on the front line of interacting with the community. You've probably seen games come and go. Have you ever seen a launch like this, or how does this compare to other games launches?
So we've handled a couple other launches this year. Shadowverse dropped a couple months ago. It's been about 4 months since Battle Spirit Saga launched. I handle a lot of our really niche card games. I'm like our resident judge for a lot of them. So I see kind of like all the nitty gritty, like they kind of throw all that stuff my way. I'd say other than the distribution factor of it all, because I'm used to getting product like well before a launch, that way I can kind of hold on to it and have what I'm doing all set up. I'd say it was pretty on par with regular launches. The only difference is like there's a lot more people coming to this game that are clearly like brand new. They don't know anything about TCGs. They don't know how market works. So that was like a little bit of a learning experience for everybody involved because the regulars that kind of knew what was going on, like they know how TCG Player works. They know how it works with like allocation. Like they've seen distribution go wild. So it was like kind of interesting seeing everybody kind of collide with each other and like learn from each other. It was really nice. Like there was just a lot more going on this weekend than a regular launch just because there was so much more information that people needed. Like typically when you're going into a card game, like people have like with Shadowverse, for example, like people have been playing Shadowverse for years. It's just getting ported into a physical card game. Like this is like brand new unless you were playing Lorcana online, which wasn't a big market. Like everybody was brand new. So it's kind of nice that everybody was like, I don't know what's going on. So we could just go step by step with them.
And we have a question in chat. How far in advance did you get inventory before launch? Some stores
I got mine on Thursday. Yeah.
Okay.
It was exactly the same for us. We got it on Thursday evening. We started unpacking everything and counting everything, making sure that everything was correct. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, Thursday was the day. We've been getting kind of nervous because it did also come for us like pretty late in the day. And normally the shipment's there before I am and it gets delivered to one of the stores like down the road. And I went and there wasn't anything. That was like a nerve-wracking few hours because everybody started posting in that Facebook group like, hey, we're not getting our product till Monday.
Ooh.
So,
yeah, there's some LGSs that actually had to cancel their events in the Seattle area, unfortunately, because they still don't have product and it's Monday. And I called today. I was like, can I come tomorrow and get it? And they're like, we don't know when it's coming, which is really unfortunate because, you know, they had a big launch weekend, just like both of you, and they had to cancel. So
launch is crucial. Like that's the most crucial. That's the most money that game stores make. Like you have to depend on having a successful launch. So it's so awful that things were just not the best. I feel like there's definitely a lot going on that they didn't release to anybody either. Like who knows when everybody's gonna get everything because it's been pushed back like what 3 times now already because we're supposed to get product a week before, then everybody was getting it the day before, and then it was Monday and Monday wasn't helpful. So I guess we'll see.
And I'm guessing that's going to be the same for restocks. They're saying, you know, hopefully late September we're going to get restocks, but we're not holding our breaths. We are preparing accordingly. So yeah,
interesting. We have one more person we want to add to the conversation while we keep this going. We've got the content creator perspective. We've got the game store manager perspective. We're going to bring in a fan perspective and a player perspective. So I'd like to welcome Scott Oliver to the conversation. Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but you played TCGs way back in the day, but you kind of fell away, and then Lorcana came out, and you jumped on the bandwagon, and you've been like #1 Lorcana fan, you know, for like a year now. How was the launch weekend for you?
It was. I didn't even do the math right. You guys can hear me, okay?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. It's been 12 years. I was a pretty competitive Yu-Gi-Oh guy in high school, and I went back and looked, and I was like, "There's no way it's been 12 years." But I started hearing about Lorcana at the end of last year, and I was like, "Seems pretty fun." And then, I mean, as you guys know, as soon as I started seeing channels with different viewpoints on Lorcana, I was obsessed. My search history is just Lorcana this analysis, favorite part, like it's crazy, but I love it. I'm really excited for it. And I worked this weekend, so I did go to a pre-release Friday night, and it was just like the starter deck with the 1-pack. And I realized before, like an hour before, I don't really know how to play the game that well. I've just been enjoying like the cards and wanting to collect and trade and stuff. So I went and watched the Forbidden Mountains. He had an interview with somebody that did a starter. I think it was an early, but even pre-Gen Con starter deck tournament. and it helped me. I almost came in third. I came in 11th because of ties, but it was a lot of fun.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, I think the game. There was a lot of Magic players that went, and I'm not too familiar with Magic, but they were like, "Oh, this is going to be bread and butter." So I think it can have that competitive side, but I'm also just want to have fun trying characters that I really, really like and just making decks with them.
Yep.
Interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said a lot of Magic players coming. What did everybody see? And I think we covered this a little bit, but I'm interested, directly. What did everybody see, like percentage-wise, for Lorcana players, like new coming straight from another TCG and trying Lorcana versus brand new to gaming, or let's say returning after a very long absence just for Lorcana?
I would say at my tournament in LGSs, there was probably 50% net new anyone and 50% pre-TCG and people like Scott who are like old TCG and coming back. So I think that's a great and amazing number. Like, a bunch of these new people are coming to experience, a new game and come into the communities, and I think that's super awesome. So
What about you, Marco? What do you think the Saturday event kind of fell out to be with new players versus veterans?
So for us, it felt like it was about a 60-40, 60% enfranchised players with other TCGs, and about 40% new players. Most of the TCG players seem to come from games like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and Digimon, or well, the Bandai system. I know for us, we have a big community for Magic the Gathering, and it seems like the transition between Magic the Gathering and Lorcana, it's fairly easy. It's an easy game to pick up once you know the basics of Magic. So I feel like a lot of those players were encouraged because of the ease to jump into the game.
Yeah, I definitely, from my experience at the store, I could definitely see a 60-40 split. Y'all broke the event up into 3 rounds. My first round was with also a new TCG player, and then my second 2 were with some pretty well-established veteran TCG players. It was very intimidating, but they were both so kind and welcoming as someone who's still learning. What about you, Sarah? What did you see in y'all's store?
For definitely my Friday event, that was like, I would say an 80-20 split. I held my Friday event fairly late because I do regular like sealed events for Magic and all that kind of regular things that go on. I don't want to cut out any regular play, and I don't want to exclude them from any regular play by holding it on at the same time. So I'd say like 80-20 for that Friday event, and then like Saturday and Sunday it would be about that 60-40. We have a pretty loyal fan base of Magic players, and I carry a lot of we do a lot of One Piece, a lot of Battle Spirit Saga. So I had a lot of those players too, just because when you look at mechanics, they transfer like almost seamlessly. Like you can teach Lorcana entirely in Magic terms, so it was like easy for Magic players to pick up. Like they had no problem. If they were confused about something, I was just explaining it to them in Magic terms, and then they were like totally good to go.
Yeah.
Like it was nice actually, like seeing the split, because I mean, if it was all 100% new players, like it wouldn't have ran nearly as smooth as it did, because you have to kind of rely on launch for people to be helping each other out. So I'm super grateful that I had that kind of split, because all of my players that I have at my store in particular are super genuine people, and they like will slow everything down and be like, okay, this is how this goes. This is what a stack looks like. Like it was just super genuine. I liked it a lot, like being that kind of split.
Yeah, some of the veterans I played with were so nice that they would, if I did something and it was still within my turn, I'm like, oh, I didn't mean to like play that card, or I didn't mean to do that. That they would be like, do you want to do a redo? But then they themselves would never take a redo. Like they're like, no, that was my choice. Like I made that play, like I screwed up. But they were really generous and, letting me think through things. I mean, obviously I played slower than they did. So, cause I'm still learning strategy and trying to think through problems. But, yeah, it was just, it really took down those barriers, as Stephanie mentioned at the beginning with her husband being nervous about his first event. I was I was like sick to my stomach nervous. Like Liam was like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. I have to do it at some point. And I mean, Marco, y'all couldn't have made it a more perfect event for somebody who is as scared and nervous as I was. So
Yeah, I mean, we definitely try to be as welcoming as possible to new players. We know that it's scary to jump into a new game or jump into a TCG as a whole, especially with no experience. But we try to make it as casual as possible, as nice as possible and as welcoming as possible for everyone. To the point that we decided, you know what, at the end of the night, just have fun. It doesn't, like, wins and losses don't matter. We were not recording them whatsoever. We just wanted everyone to have fun, to experience the game, and everyone was getting the same prize support. We gave out 2 packs for everyone who participated in the event, plus a Tinkerbell promo. So it was really nice.
That's awesome. We have 2 things I want to say. One, Sarah, you have a lot of support from the Duke City Games crowd. So they turn out for you.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Second, we're gonna do a quick content creator swap because Stephanie has to go, and we're gonna bring in somebody else. So Stephanie, thanks for joining the stream. Any closing thoughts?
Thank you LGS owners for making this weekend amazing, Marco and Sarah, and I'm super excited to hear more of your OP. And if I'm in, all you guys are in Austin area, right?
I'm in Austin.
Okay.
Sarah's in New Mexico.
Oh, okay, New Mexico. All right. Well, if I'm in Austin, New Mexico, I will absolutely stop by and say hello. Because I travel, once in a while, so that would be great. And Scott, so great to meet you on the internet. I know we've talked a little bit on Twitter.
Yeah, I won one of your giveaways with the
Yes,
Stitch.
you did.
That was
Yes.
cool. Thank you very much.
Awesome. And Aaron and Liam, thank you again for having me on. And I
So
will
good
see
to
you
see you
all
as
again
always.
soon. Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
Bye,
All right,
Steph.
I'm gonna let you and Scott high five. Watch this. Boom. Hey. Boom. I'm sorry. I kept saying Scott. Jacob from Ready Set Draw, one of our favorite shows. It felt like a perfect time to bring you in because for anybody who's watched Jacob's channel, Ready Set Draw, they are fantastic at welcoming new people into the game, explaining games in a way that's easy to understand, and that's kind of their mission. So, so game store owners, if you're ever looking, you have new players who are trying to access, Lorcana for the first time, it's a great place to send them. Jacob, how was your weekend?
My weekend was chaotic. It was like, but in the best way. I tried my best to document release day on Saturday or on Friday with just Twitter posts of just pictures of what we were doing, because I knew we wouldn't really be able to get a lot of content made this weekend. It was going to be just a lot of living it and not really. I wanted to help people see what was going on and kind of justify why we didn't have like videos coming out the weekend and stuff. But with release day, it was like we have 2 local stores in our area. And so we were lucky enough to be able to like hit one and then hit the other and see what we could get. And we have built relationships with them over the past 10 years of just getting product from them for different games. And so when they heard that we were going to ask for Lorcana, they were like, bet we're going to have it because we know you're going to get it. And we, made sure those relationships were intact because they always should be. And it was just all 4 of us and our friend Dylan, who you probably met at Gen Con, Liam.
Mm-hmm.
He came down from his house to spend time with us. And it was pretty much all of us finally just holding product for the first time. It was Anthony's first time to actually buy stuff himself. It was his first box opening, which we're going to post, I think, tomorrow, and his experience. And what was chaotic is like all of us had a couple boxes each, maybe 2 or 3. And so we went through this mass opening experience. And I'm pretty sure it's like what anybody has the first time they open Lorcana packs. You're in awe of the art first of like, oh,
yes,
it looks so pretty. And then after you get everything open, any TCG ends up like this. You're like, okay, what do I build? And what do I do? And you got a snapshot of that at Gen Con, Liam. But this was like that times 1,000. Because not only was it just like 1 box's worth of stuff to craft anything, it was like among the 5 of us, we could trade, make any deck possible, and like really see how we could work it out. And we got to play multiplayer with all of us. We got to play 1v1s. We set up the studio and like played a bunch of games together and just kind of swapped people. But most importantly, on Friday at 2 p.m., we went to our locals Learn to Play, and I sat down with, if they end up watching this show, they're newcomers to the scene, but it's Josh and Lori. I taught them how to play the game, and then kind of helped answer questions for them and kind of foster their appreciation for the game and stuff. And I feel like I succeeded because after they finished the learn to play, they bought more cards. So,
That's an indicator.
yeah. So they were really great. And I saw them again on Saturday at the next learn to play the next day, and played with a couple new people, taught them how to play. And really all of Saturday was just play as many games as possible. And it was so fun. So I think I have like 4 decks, and everybody else has at least 3 on the team. And we're all just kind of bouncing ideas, trying to build unique stuff and seeing what's possible. But it is something special. So if that sums it up.
No, it's.
I think I mean I think something special. It describes exactly how we feel about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'd love to know from kind of both sides, from the store side, from the fan side, Scott and Jacob. Jacob, you mentioned how important it is to build a relationship with your LGS.
Mm-hmm.
And so why is that relationship from both the LGS side and the customer side, why is that building that relationship and holding that relationship so important, especially when it comes, to time to these sorts of activities and just in general? Why is having that relationship with your store so important to y'all?
Would y'all like to answer first? Or?
Well, I seek a lot of feedback constantly. I don't know how closely you guys follow like our Instagram, but I'm always asking questions. I'm always seeking out like, what do you want? When do you want it? Because I have a lot more niche card games in the store. It's not just your Magic, your Yu-Gi-Oh, and your Pokemon. I have a heavy focus, and card games that aren't the big 3. So like, especially when it comes to games like Weiss and it comes to games like Lorcana, I need to know ahead of time if they actually want the product, because I don't want to put out a bunch of money into a product that none of my player base cares about. So like being vocal about every card game that you like and whether or not you're interested in a set, like that's crucial information for me to have, because I don't want to overbuy and sit on stock that I don't think that anybody's going to purchase, and then you're worried about where it's going to go. And it's also like, I can't tinker with my event schedule if people aren't letting me know, like, okay, for the vast majority of this group, Friday doesn't work. How about Saturday? Like, it's all super just like, I can't be successful and keep my doors open unless everybody's communicating what they actually want and need, so that way they can have their experience in the store, have it be excellent, and have all the product that they're wanting, while also not making horrible financial decisions. It all tinkers in the balance. Like, I would rather people sit there and talk to me all day, like literally the whole day, about what they hate and what they don't hate, like, than the opposite. Like, it's just super important to, like, I mean, it's kind of like when you're behind a counter at an LGS, it's kind of like you're a bartender, but for card games. Like, you have to.
I love that.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's the second like bar or bumper sticker quote I've heard in the last couple of days that I want to know product out of.
Scott, I'd love to hear from your perspective. Like, why is creating that relationship with your LGS so important?
Yeah, so I wouldn't have got cards this weekend if I didn't have a connection with one of my local stores. There was about 4 in my area, and this is labeled the good, the bad, and the ugly. One of them straight up got product, and they said booster packs $22, starters $60. Like, and I was like, well, how are we going to really get people in there? And he said, I'm just trying to get rid of it. I don't think it's going to do well. And I was like, I don't think it's the best option, but okay. So I went to another one that they only got, I think, 12 boxes, and they were not planning to sell any. But I probably annoyed them for a little bit too much, but they, in a good way. And they sold me 2 boxes in a trove. And I was so thankful, because I'm going to try to help do weeklies there, like learn to play, stuff like that. And they said, we're not selling another box. Like, we need to have enough to give out for, for weeklies. So if I didn't put at least a little bit of thought like into trying to talk to them and hopefully let them know I'm not in this to flip. I'm not in this to go straight to the market. Like I want this game to succeed. And it worked because I wouldn't have got cards this weekend, honestly. And the other two stores are kind of almost like a retail, like they're just selling starters and limit one, and it's like limit one for the week, and you sign on like a list, so you can't just keep coming back. But yeah, because of that, I was able to get some cards, which is great. So
Yeah,
That's
interesting.
I think we have a question from the chat.
One question from two more questions. One from the chat, and we'll open this up and see who wants to jump in. What is your all's number one tip for teaching, let's say, new players, somebody who's brand new to card games? Is there a methodology? Is there something that's important to highlight right away? How do you go about teaching new people?
So I do what's called trial by fire, is what everybody
Yes.
affectionately calls it. Like we just jump in. Like if you start explaining everything, like there's 800 tangents you could go on. Like it's gonna take forever. Like you have to just play it. Like you have to just run it back, or it's not gonna be helpful in my experience. So like I will just sit down and we will go step by step. Okay, this is how this is played. This is what you do now. This is this step. Like pulling up those the little like papers that you got in the starters were also super helpful. That way, like if like I could explain it and then I could have them read it, and then if they were somebody that's played another card game, they could kind of reference that. Or if they hadn't, like you can always reference things to like video games or like board games or D&D, things like that. So like just forcing them to play it even though they might be nervous. Like I get told playing games against me is like playing a gym leader in Pokemon all the time. But like it's truly the best way, just because like if they do something wrong, you can correct it kindly in that moment, and it's not going to be a situation where you're just like, here's how you play the game, good luck, because they've had the first hand, like the full walkthrough, like hands down on the table, like everybody can see exactly what's going on. Like they just have to get like a tangible feel for the game, or I feel like my success rate in getting people to come back is not nearly as high.
Interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I really like that mentality of trial by fire. As a matter of fact, for us, we hosted 2 weekends prior to the launch event as learn to play events for anyone that wanted to learn how to play. And yeah, we just jumped right into the games. It was all about getting their hands, like a hands-on experience for them. And I think that was much appreciated by them, by not having to explain everything, like every single term beforehand. It was much more like a go as you play, and I feel like people have more fun that way. And this game, it feels like it's all about the fun. It's all about like enjoying the gameplay. So that's what we did.
Okay, so I think we have one
final question.
Final question for all 4 of you. What was your favorite part of launch weekend?
Or most surprising part of launch weekend?
Part of launch weekend. I think we can just go around the table. Scott, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I would say it's a very refreshing one. I went to, like I said, the Friday night starter deck tournament, and the store I went to is pretty big. It had, I think they can hold 110 to 120 like games, and they have it split halfway. And on the left side was a Yu-Gi-Oh like weekly tournament, and then on the right side was Lorcana. And the range of age and the diversity of the Lorcana group was night and day. There was a lot of couples, there was kids, there was some people a little bit older. There was 3 people in the corner that went to Gen Con and already had a binder with every card. I don't know how, but they had every single card basically. Then there was someone walking in like, I just want to get a Pongo. It was such a range, which was really cool. And nothing against the Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, but they were, they're consistent and they had their little group and it was great. But I would say to see what Lorcana can bring to LGSs was really, really cool, for sure.
What about you, Sarah?
So I'm kind of on the opposite spectrum of card game sizes, like card store sizes. Our larger location is like quadruple the size of mine. It can fit like 150 players, all that kind of deal. My store comfortably fits about 24 players. I can squeeze 32 people in if I have to. Consistently from the time that I opened at like 2 till the time it was like 8:30, the people in the chat that I recognize were there for the whole experience. I had about 50 to 80 or 90 people in the store, which I don't know how they all squeezed themselves in.
Their
It
Marshall
was
time.
the whole, yeah, but they were all so kind to each other, which you don't see a lot. Like I've had Madhouse pre-releases for Magic where people are like fighting outside about stuff. Like people get crazy, but everybody was so kind to each other the whole time. Like I had weeklies going on for One Piece. I had a BCS for Vanguard going on. I had a qualifier for regionals for Shadowverse going on, and then I had Lorcana and Pokemon all going on in one day, and everybody was super patient the whole time. Like we even had I had some more of my like my newer players that kind of play at times when it's not busy in the store, because some of them are nonverbal, like they just have different needs, that were trying Lorcana, and I was hopeful that everybody was going to be kind to them and respectful and understanding. But with the chaos in the store, it was hard for me to monitor. But they were perfect with them. Like everybody was so kind. They were so sweet. Like it's a way different situation than what I was expecting. So I'm not used to seeing that with card games. Like it can get intense. Like with the big three, people go feral. So it was just like a whole like refreshing situation where everybody was like calm. They were patient as I was like physically running back and forth trying to figure things out. Like it was probably my favorite launch weekend that I've had in a while because I didn't have to break up any arguments or anything. It was great.
That's awesome.
What about you, Jacob?
I would say that the most refreshing thing to me, or like the most cathartic moment I had all weekend, was we frequently in trading processes, the most efficient and fair way to do trading processes is to look up the TCG market value of cards and to see what it's worth. And you can have fair market value trades. So you're not just, I'll trade you, he's got a sword for a John Silver because I like the art. Like it's not going to work out that way. And the most refreshing thing to me was coming from someone who's played all the big three. I've played all of them and I've built decks in all of them. The game I was hoping this game emulated the most price-wise was Pokemon, just because the decks are affordable in that game. And the ability to build a deck usually isn't cost prohibitive as the decision. It's usually if you want to bling out your deck, that's whenever things get more expensive. So the playability of a deck, seeing the prices over the weekend, just on singles at least, just fall and fall into a reasonable range. As a player, it's very, very comforting to me because I was like, okay, as a deck builder and someone who likes to tinker and experiment with different stuff, this is going to be open as a game. If it was like Yu-Gi-Oh, it would be so prohibitive for a newer player to come in and try stuff. But this game looks very welcoming price-wise, and it's really, really comforting because it means that I can, when new people come in, I can say, hey, look, I know this deck just completely wiped the floor with you, but you can have it for this much money. Like it's a very little investment, and that's way more welcoming for a new player to go, oh, okay, so I don't have to drop like a couple hundred on this deck. I mean, Rapunzel's Rapunzel right now, but those are the exceptions, not the rules. And so ironically, it was the value of my cards dropping that I was most happy about. I like to see the approachability for deck building.
I love that. So thanks so much. We have to change over. We're going to switch topics real quick. We're going to say goodbye to two of our guests. Jacob, Scott, thanks so much for joining us. I know you have other things to do. It was a pleasure having you both on. So any final couple thoughts on the way out the door?
Just to second what Sarah and Marco were talking about with the learning to play and teaching. There's a teaching philosophy called learning by doing, and that's exactly what it was. You just, like Ryan Miller said once, get the cards in people's hands. They're going to love it regardless. So Yeah.
Yes.
Thumbs up to that.
Thanks, Jacob. See it.
Bye,
Hey, Scott, any final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I've been fans for a long time. And Jacob did just throw a John Silver pun right in there. I'm pretty sure that was for you. So
It probably was, and I missed it. I'm going to rewatch this. Thanks for calling that to my attention, Scott. Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you guys.
We're going to bring in 2 more guests now. We're going to switch over and talk a little about competitive play. We're going to hold on to our games for our managers, owners. So first, I want to introduce Dan from Forbidden Mountain podcast / YouTube channel. Hey, Dan, before I introduce our other guests, I did want to bring up, you had a very nice comment in the chat, and I'm worried people may have missed it. Do you want a chance to convey that real quick before we get into the next part?
Yeah, gigantic shout out to Sarah. I'm a father of 2 autistic children. One of them is nonverbal, and hearing you, just putting an effort in that, that parameter is really comfortable. It's really fun. Actually, a couple years ago, I went to PAX Unplugged, and I did like a D&D panel that was all about, teaching and helping children with nonverbal and things like that. So it was just really cool to hear someone in the community doing that already. I absolutely love and adore it.
Yeah, that's absolutely, like, whenever anybody asks me what my main focus is in the store, that's inclusion and diversity are like the top things to us. Like, my boss has faced a lot of adversity coming into this. Like, he's a person of color. He's put up with all of the adversity he's dealt with. I have sensory issues as well, so I know what it's like to be overstimulated in a competitive setting, because I used to play Magic competitively. So the only focus that I've ever had is like making people feel welcome, because like I want more women to play TCGs. I want them to be in the game stores. I want people who feel like they can't play because of X, Y, and Z reasons to be able to play. I don't want it to be daunting at all. Like, that's the big thing for everyone, because you shouldn't gatekeep people out of the community.
I completely agree. I don't want to take too much time on it. We literally have a friend that made a video for our channel being released tomorrow about women in gaming, and it's just something that I'm excited to be a part of and help with in every fashion. But going the next level for children of need and things like that, big shout out to you, seriously.
Thank you.
We're gonna do a whole show on this here in a couple weeks. I think this is a great topic. It's a great show idea. I do want to introduce, so we get to the last part of the program, but love the discussion. We're really excited to have Franklin of Nat 20 Games in Crossville, Tennessee. Franklin is so this part of the show is about competitive play, and I'm going to toss it right over to Franklin first. Because for those who don't know, Cross City Games, Nat 20 Games is holding, I think, the first real big competitive Lorcana tournament, probably in the country, if not the world. Why don't you tell us about your tournament and why going so quickly to competitive play was something you wanted to do?
We're doing a cash prize constructed tournament. We're going to do it this Saturday, the 26th. We're going to do registration at 8. It's going to start at 10 o'clock. We really wanted to start competitive to get a lot of the cross players from Magic, Pokemon, all the different games, to bring them into Lorcana. A lot of them have been interested in it anyway. And a lot of them, I think, were they were a little off-put, thinking it was, Disney. It might be more of a kid's game. And once we actually got our hands on it and played it at Gen Con, we realized there's a lot of depth to it, a lot of competitiveness that can be had. So we wanted to go ahead and jump right into it. From what we've heard from a lot of stores, and a lot of people are, they're going towards a family game, which it is, and we're definitely doing that. Sundays will be our league play, and that's what we're going to be trying to do. But we wanted to really get the competitive aspect in it also, because I think there's a lot more depth in it than what a lot of people are going to give it credit for. We went in on our F&Ms and stuff and just told a lot of the players, just give this a chance, try it. And you can tell within 5 minutes, you see it on their face, hey, this is a lot more than what I thought it was going to be.
That's interesting. And I do want to dive more into that in a minute, but I do want to toss it over to our other guest, Dan. And after the Nat 20 Games tournament, I think the next big event we've heard about are a series of events that you got to announce. It's a series of tournaments run by PPG. Do you want to run us through that and why you think PPG is jumping into the competitive scene so early as well?
PPG, their entertainment side has been going for 5-6 years now, maybe even a little bit longer if like we count more locally, like in the like Florida area. But yeah, they're definitely excited. They're very competitive minded. They have a long-term plan, which is great. The first one was just announced for the following weekend, which is the September 2nd. It's officially only on Saturday, September 2nd. So the whole day event. He just released like the full scale of it. So I think it's like the $45 badge that you have to buy. And then I think the entry fee is like $25. They're giving out basically a little bit over a case to the top 8 players. So that's the first one, and then they have another one coming down the line, which is at MiamiCon, which is not fully yet announced, but he does expect it to be bigger for price structure and for seating. He only was able to get 64 seats for the convention in Denver, so a little bit smaller than he probably was planning on, but 64 seats. A bit over a case for the prizes. And then the final one is going to be all the way in December, which will have Chapter 2 at that point, which will probably be one of the first events for Chapter 2, and that's at GalaxyCon, which I believe is December 2nd and 3rd also. So he's got a lot going on. He's definitely committed to the long term. He's probably going to continue to do these. He runs events, like PPG runs events 3 out of 4 weeks of every month. So these are the 3 targets that he has for Lorcana, but if they're successful, he might even add more on, things like that. So George is a great guy, and he's been doing this for a long time.
This question is for everybody. What interest have y'all seen in competitive play thus far for Lorcana? Has that been something Marco and Sarah have been requested at your stores? Frank, what is kind of the buzz in the community right now?
It's pretty high right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, for us, there has been a lot of questions whether or not there's going to be a competitive aspect to Lorcana beyond the league or the regular leagues. And it comes up from a lot of the TCG and franchise players that are looking to, excel in these TCGs, that are looking for the next steps into the game. They want to be the best ones. They want to prove everyone that they can win, that they can, hold glory. And I completely get it. I was a tournament grinder for Magic for a long time, participating in like RCQs, like the GP circuit, all of that. And I get it. Everybody wants to be able to win, to be able to like have that, competitive edge against everyone else. So yes, there's a lot of questions about what else, what's next, and when can I get these major tournament at Disney World or Disneyland, right?
I think one of the things that will keep this game long term is being able to have both a competitive scene and a friendly scene. That's what's going to keep this going to rival Magic and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! That you can get hardcore players and you can get families in, and everybody can have fun doing it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Sarah, what about you in your community? Has there been a lot of requests for competitive play?
Oh yeah, I'm in a pretty privileged position with my players taking card games very seriously. I have an excellent group of people that's I want to say about 10, 12 people that go and they play every single card game that I put on the table, and they are as competitive as they possibly can be because they want me to be able to run the regionals. They want me to be able to run all of the RCQs. So they kind of hit the ground running, asking me weeks beforehand what we were going to do. I think we're going to do a little bit of a different take on it and try to do more sealed and draft, just because I want to provide a little bit more variety in the competitive scene, especially if we are going to end up working with other stores and kind of do our own circuit, because Lorcana themselves is kind of holding back on here's this Ravensburg sponsored thing, like that gives game stores an excellent chance to network with each other and kind of create like a, here's this weekend at this store, travel, like let everybody travel to different states, see different game stores, do different things. So I think we're gonna go a little bit, like of course we'll still do constructed, but I think we'll do a little bit more sealed and draft, just to kind of get that competitive scene going in a different aspect. That way people aren't getting bored of it, because what makes and breaks a card game scene is its competitive players. They spend the most money, they spend the most time in the game, they find where the meta lies. They are really like the deterministic people when it comes to keeping a game alive, because they generate a lot more hype. Like card game stores can only generate so much hype. The company themselves can only generate so much hype. Like the competitive players are like truly the greatest asset that any card game has, and we should be supporting that and still supporting casual players at the same time, because one can't exist without the other.
That's fascinating. You're seeing similar messages from the chat, people chiming in that both casual and competitive supporting each other is a must. And it is interesting because I do think people end up in their camps sometimes and they focus on one segment of the gaming population or the other and forget that there's this symbiosis. Yeah. I wonder, because we focused the first half on the show on casual play, and then the second half on competitive play. We talk about the synergy. Does anybody have any advice for casual players, perhaps, who have just entered the game and want to take that step into competitive play, but might be a little intimidated?
I mean, I think the league plays around us. For example, like yesterday, there was 3 or 4 stores that ran league plays. They had 20 to 30 players each. If you can get in a room and you can, tell which players are maybe a little more advanced, like I like to tell everyone, like, play against those players. The only way to get better is to play against someone better than you, to ask those questions, to when you're done playing a game after the match is over, be like, hey, did I do anything wrong? And honestly, most of the community is really nice, really supportive, and they're always looking to help each other out. So unless you get someone that's really unfriendly, they're probably going to give you an honest answer. And that's what I always tell people. Just never be afraid. A, never be afraid to lose. And B, never be afraid to ask the question about why you might have lost.
I think like practice in general is also super important. Like if you are going a couple weeks without playing a card game, like of course, like playing card games is like riding a bike, but it's still going to be a little bit rough. Like you have to be consistent and you have to be playing with a variety. Like it's not going to do you any good to play test against the same 2 or 3 people that you always play test against. You're going to have to branch out and do things that are uncomfortable. The competitive scene for every card game, like when I was playing competitive Magic, when I did some competitive Flesh and Blood, like it's uncomfortable as an experience. Like no matter who you are, you have to get used to being uncomfortable, or it's not gonna it's not gonna fare well. You just have to kind of push yourself into that threshold of like, okay, it's okay to be uncomfortable in this moment because I'm playing against someone unfamiliar. And you just have to kind of find the fun in that, because you can't predict what your opponent's going to do. It doesn't matter how much you've seen the deck be played. Like it's all different people. Like variety is super important.
I think Dan made an excellent point. Don't be scared. Like my biggest advice for a player that is doing that transition is not being scared to losing games. I've learned more about games I've lost than games that I've steamrolled someone. I think you absolutely learn more about the game and about mistakes that you may be making in the game, or something that you could be doing better from losing games and from playing with more experienced players than you are. So I think Dan made an excellent point on that end, that you learn so much from losing that you shouldn't be scared of losing. You shouldn't be discouraged from losing either. I think if anything, it shows you that it will make those wins more rewarding once you've lost a lot.
And don't be afraid to ask your opponent, what you could have done better, or maybe what they did that you didn't understand. That discussion between you and your opponent is a huge deal to growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. It is interesting that you say that, because thinking about my own experience, and I've played card games for years, I still get nervous when I sit there, even at the casual event, sitting down in front of a new player. There's that moment where you're like introducing yourself, and they're introducing themselves to you, and you're like, how's this going to go? And yeah, be comfortable being uncomfortable. I like that. I'm getting all the bumper stickers.
The release, let's talk Lorcana bumper sticker series.
Yeah, I've got several. One that I thought of too, that when Sarah was talking about learning by fire, is like, you'll figure it out by turn 3. I think that's something
So in our last few minutes of the show, we wanted to open it up. I mean, one of the things that we love at the Illumiteers is creating community and learning from one another. And we have a very diverse group of folks on the call tonight. So do y'all have questions for each other? Marco, Sarah, do you have questions for Frank about competitive play, or vice versa? We wanted to open the floor to you if y'all have questions of each other.
And Frank, how's the pre-sale looking for the 1K?
I did want to know that. Yeah, that's a good question.
I think right now we have about a dozen pre-registered. I would advise anyone that's really wanting to play to go on our website. Our melee.gg is linked to it, and pre-register, because I do believe as the week starts to creep up, it's going to sell out pretty quick. We've had a lot of interest from, as far as 5-6 hours away, people calling asking about coming to playing it. We plan on doing this as a monthly thing. We're not sure exactly how far apart the next one will be, but we will start doing this monthly once the second one kicks off.
I know I have a question for Sarah. Sarah, are you guys capping your events for the weeklies? I know I'm bound. I have to cap my events, and I'm bound by the amount of packs that we save for organized play. Because in our store, we want to give you something for participating. We don't want you to leave empty-handed. It sucks to pay an entry fee and not get anything. So we want everyone to get something. So we are having a cap. For our events, it's looking like it's going to be 24 people every week. But are you guys capping events?
So because my store only fits like up to 32 people at like max, I wouldn't say that like I've capped it, like the space has capped it. But for our larger location, we're gonna try to see kind of how consistent of a turnout we can get, because we're kind of alternating days between both stores. Even though they're 45 minutes away, like we have people that will travel between both. So like Tuesdays and Thursdays, they have Wednesdays and Fridays. So that way, like we don't have to set an upper limit, because we can kind of capture people and stagger them as much as possible. Ideally, like if I had to limit myself based on the prize support that I saved away, it would probably be about 24 as well. It depends on when we get a restock, though. We're allegedly supposed to get more stuff in by the end of the week, but we'll see if that actually happens. So that could change. I don't like capping my events unless I have to. Like, I think Bandai is the only card game company that like caps them for you, but.
So you're saying, you're not capping your space. The fire marshal is capping your space.
Yeah. I literally sent my boss a message and was like, "There's like 80 people in the store," and he was like, "You better hope nobody calls the fire marshal." And I was
Oh man, we saw at Gen Con what happens when too many people are in a small spot. We don't like that. Anyway, we are running close on time. I just want to real quick go around the horn and for anybody watching the streams, I want them to know how they can follow you all. So we'll start with our game stores. Frank, for people in Tennessee or in the Crossville area, how can they find you or find you on social media?
Just go on our Facebook, Nat20 Games. It's got a link to our website, everything that we run.
That's awesome. Marco, Austin, how can people find you?
So anyone in the Austin area or in the Central Texas area can find us as Game Castle Austin on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, pretty much anywhere, any social media, Game Castle Austin. And I would like to extend the invitation for anyone that's visiting Austin. Just come to our store. We will be welcoming you with open arms. Whether you're an enfranchised player or a new player, we would love to have you here.
And Sarah, how can folks find you?
So pretty much everywhere, like TikTok, Instagram, it's going to be Duke City Games. My store in particular on Facebook is labeled Duke City Games Rio Rancho. And if you're needing to get access to myself as well, because I also do run a lot of the store promotion through my own personal stuff, you can just find that directly on the Duke page. It's kind of split up between both stores, but you'll know you're in the right spot because my face is like plastered all over all of the social media. So
it's true. I'll say you don't even have to be in New Mexico to have a good time following your feed. Like everybody should follow, whether or not you're gonna be there or not.
And Dan, how about you? How can people find you and your podcast?
Just real quick, I used to travel for a living, and it's really funny because I actually am like 95% confident that I've been to Game Castle in Austin. So it's really cool to see, the full circle here. But yeah, as a person who used to travel, I used to go into random card game stores all the time. It's really great to find new community and new players that way. So you guys are doing an awesome job. I wish I was closer and still travel. I don't travel for work anymore, guys. Sorry. So I can't just randomly show up. But for anyone else for watching me, I'm Dan from the Forbidden Mountain on YouTube at TFM Lorcana, like it is on the screen. And we cover mostly finance and a lot of organized play coming up now with the competitive events. I'll definitely be checking out Frank's event and all the information coming from that next weekend. So if you're looking for a recap, you can find it on our channel next week.
Yeah. And we want you all back on at some point in the stream. And for Sky, who said we need Utah LGS representation, for anybody watching, any LGS manager or owner has an open invitation on our stream. You send us a note, we will bring you on and have these conversations. So hey, thanks so much for being here. This is great. What a way to celebrate Lorcana release weekend. Yeah, we have nothing else. So our sign off catchphrase is sign off catchphrase.